On July 5, 2005, at approximately 8:00 a.m., 16-year-old Emily Rush from Chicago was in her cabin on Deck 7 of the cruise ship Royal Caribbean, preparing for a bright day ahead. As she looked out her cabin window, she noticed something alarming, what appeared to be blood smeared across the canopy that served as a protective cover for a nearby lifeboat. Additionally, she observed a bloodstain at the edge of the canopy, suggesting that someone who had been injured might have fallen there before disappearing overboard. Disturbed by this discovery, Emily promptly reported her findings to the ship's staff. Other passengers from adjacent cabins also became aware of these unsettling signs, leading to animated discussions on decks about the possible events that had transpired. This marked the beginning of a narrative that would capture headlines in numerous international publications, shortly after a joyful young couple had embarked on their Mediterranean honeymoon cruise. Their blissful experience was abruptly interrupted by a mysterious and tragic incident that unfolded in cabin number 962. The theories surrounding the occurrence varied widely, encompassing notions of an accident, a potential robbery, or even premeditated murder. The investigation soon became a complex enigma for law enforcement, as the evidence gathered on board pointed to several suspects, each concealing their own secrets. It appeared that many individuals aboard the ship possessed knowledge far beyond what they were willing to disclose regarding the events of that fateful night. This remains the central question for detectives, journalists, and all those involved. George Smith, a cheerful and inquisitive young man, hailed from the small town of Greenwich, Connecticut. His childhood was marked by happiness, supported by a loving family that always took precedence in his life. He maintained a close bond with his parents and his sister, Bree. His father, George Smith Sr., owned and operated a liquor store, which was not merely a job, but a genuine passion for him. In 2000, George Smith completed his higher education in business at Babson College in Massachusetts. Following his graduation, he spent several years working in Boston as a computer data mining analyst. However, his true inclination was always towards the family business. After careful consideration, he chose to return home to assist his parents in managing the store. Under his father's mentorship, he aimed to master the intricacies of the family enterprise, preparing himself to eventually take over and allow his parents to enjoy a well-deserved vacation. In 2002, during a reunion with friends, George met Jennifer, a fellow Connecticut native who had just accepted a position as an elementary school teacher. She was bright, beautiful, and ambitious, mirroring George's own qualities. The two young individuals quickly fell in love, and George's parents were equally pleased with his choice. 3 years later, in 2005, at the age of 26, the couple decided to marry and embark on a new chapter in their lives, celebrating their union with joy. The couple celebrated their wedding at the Castle Hill Inn, situated in the charming town of Newport, Rhode Island. The ceremony was held by the oceanfront, providing an ideal backdrop for such a significant occasion in their lives. Following the ceremony, the newlyweds embarked on a honeymoon cruise aboard a luxurious Royal Caribbean liner, one of the majestic vessels in their fleet. This 12-day voyage took them through the stunning waters of the Aegean Sea, commencing in Barcelona on June 29, with stops in France's Cité d'Azur and along the Italian coastline. During the cruise, George and Jennifer quickly formed a friendship with another couple and a young man named Josh Assin from California. The 20-year-old, known for his sharp wit, easily endeared himself to George, and the group enjoyed each other's company. On July 1, as the liner departed from the Italian coast, they decided to disembark together for a day of exploration. On July 4, the young travelers roamed the island, wandered through the narrow streets of the old town, swam in the pristine Aegean Sea, and savored the local cuisine in charming taverns. Their time in Mykonos left them with unforgettable memories, and they looked forward to continuing their evening together on the deck of the ship after a romantic dinner. Once reunited with their friends, the lively group shared laughter and joy, cherishing the moments spent in this exotic locale. The evening was filled with merriment and delightful experiences. The newlyweds, accompanied by Josh Askin, decided to enjoy some appetizers and drinks while having fun at the casino aboard the liner. George and Josh found pleasure in playing at the craps table, where they were entertained throughout the game, while Jennifer engaged in poker. By the end of the evening, the couple had lost a considerable sum of money, yet they took it in stride, joking about their losses, as it was their honeymoon. After the casino closed, the friends opted to extend their night out. The last recorded footage of George was captured around 2:30 a.m. by one of the ship's numerous security cameras, showing him exiting the casino. However, this did not imply that George would return to his cabin. In the early hours of June 5, 2005, on the Greek island of Mykonos, a mysterious situation began to unfold. George Smith, 26, a newlywed on a cruise with his wife Jennifer, vanished the previous night. Reports indicated that George was actively enjoying the luxurious atmosphere of the liner, and everything appeared to be in good spirits. However, the subsequent events took a much darker turn. The ship's captain investigated the cabin beneath a window where unusual footprints had been discovered, along with evidence on deck. The cabin was found unoccupied, and the available footprints and clues suggested that something serious had transpired. The potential disappearance of the newlyweds was suspected to be linked to violence. News of the incident quickly spread among the ship's passengers, causing alarm. Disturbance ensued as Deck 7 was cordoned off, preventing anyone from entering or exiting their cabins. The ship's crew was on high alert. A comprehensive search was conducted throughout the vessel in an effort to locate the missing George and Jennifer following the unsettling discovery of blood. The newlyweds were feared to have vanished under mysterious circumstances. Taking decisive action, the senior officer proceeded to their stateroom to uncover the truth behind the situation. Based on the evidence available, it was theorized that George may have fallen overboard. Meanwhile, the search for the young couple continued on the opposite side of the ship. By 10 a.m., Jennifer was located in the ship's spa, where she was engaged in a pre-scheduled massage session. Her expression revealed a mix of surprise and concern, as she stated that she was unaware of her husband's location and had not seen him since the previous night. Jennifer explained that upon waking that morning, she noticed her husband was missing, but initially thought nothing of it, believing he had spent the night with friends and was in another cabin. Consequently, she did not seek him out and opted to enjoy her spa treatment without concern for his absence. At noon, Turkish authorities boarded the ship to initiate an investigation. The ship's captain sought to reassure the worried passengers, announcing that the unusual circumstances necessitated collaboration with local authorities. He stressed that this was essential for clarifying the situation and expressed optimism that it would be resolved promptly. The police began their inquiries with Jennifer, the missing man's wife, whose distressed demeanor and apparent lack of knowledge about her husband's whereabouts raised further questions. The husband implicated her as the primary suspect, to which she responded that she had not seen George since the night before. She recounted that individuals in white uniforms from the Royal Caribbean had arrived at her residence to inform her that her husband might have fallen overboard. Additionally, they discovered bloodstains on the boat's awning, leaving little doubt that something dreadful had transpired involving George. The investigator examined cabin 962 on the cruise ship, which was in disarray, possibly due to a hasty search or a struggle. Small droplets of blood were located on the bathroom carpet and towel, along with fingerprints on the balcony railing. Turkish investigators also identified 2 small bloodstains on the bedding, each approximately 2 km in length, confirming that the blood belonged to George. All evidence suggested that George had experienced trauma within the cabin prior to his enigmatic disappearance. The investigator noted a chair on the balcony that had been repositioned, allowing someone to sit adjacent to the railing. Marks on the railing indicated that someone had been seated there, which led to suspicions, including from the ship's captain, that George may have fallen from the balcony. However, the high railing and the presence of blood, both on the boat's awning and within the cabin, raised further concerns about a potential murder. Investigators commenced reconstructing the events of that night, seeking to determine who George had been with and what circumstances may have contributed to this tragedy. The investigation was only in its initial stages. It was already apparent that the situation involved a complex and troubling narrative filled with enigmas and unforeseen developments when the Turkish authorities boarded the ship to commence their inquiry into the disappearance of George Smith. They opted to begin their investigation by interrogating the group of young men who had spent the previous evening with the newlyweds. The circumstances remained enigmatic, and every piece of information could prove crucial in unraveling the mystery. The members of the group disclosed that George and Jennifer had consumed a significant amount of alcohol that fateful night. They stated that George was inebriated, and they assisted him back to his cabin, where they placed him in bed, removed his shoes, and left him alone. They also mentioned that they could not locate Jennifer and presumed she had returned to the cabin later. However, several inconsistencies emerged in Josh Askin's account. He asserted that he witnessed Jennifer departing with a casino employee named Lloyd, believing there was a romantic connection between them that was evident even in George's presence. Yet, surveillance footage revealed that at 3:30 a.m. Jennifer was seen leaving, having abandoned George with her new acquaintances, while L's keycard records indicated his return to the cabin at 3:25 a.m., corroborated by his girlfriend, whom he awakened upon entering. These discrepancies prompted further inquiries from investigators, leading them to suspect that Josh Askin might have had ulterior motives for concealing significant information. The investigation progressed, with each new revelation adding layers to the unfolding mystery. A sense of intrigue envelops the narrative surrounding Greg Rosenberg, a 19-year-old who was relishing a cruise with his family and friends. Among his companions were his cousin, Zach Rosenberg, and a close friend, Rostislav Kaufman. Despite their Russian heritage, all three held American passports and resided in New York City. The evening's entertainment commenced in the casino, where Jennifer and Greg decided to test their luck at poker. Their gambling activities persisted until the casino's closure at 2:30 a.m. Following the casino's closing, the group opted to extend their revelry at the disco, where they continued to dance and indulge in alcoholic beverages. Lloyd Botha, the casino manager, was also seen mingling with them, joining in their merriment as the young men carried on with their nocturnal festivities. However, as the night progressed, accounts from witnesses began to diverge, particularly as the members of the group gradually returned to their cabins. By this late hour, the young men were noticeably intoxicated and boisterous. In accordance with the ship's regulations, it was determined that service would be denied to those exhibiting loud and unruly behavior. When the crew refused to serve two inebriated patrons, the group recalled that they had brought along a bottle of absinthe purchased during their excursion on the island of Mykonos. It is important to note that passengers were prohibited from consuming their own alcohol. At a certain point, Josh returned to his cabin, located on the same deck, to retrieve a special bottle of absinthe he claimed to have plans for. It was later revealed that this absinthe possessed an unusually high alcohol content, with an alcohol content exceeding 70%, making it one of the most potent beverages available. George opted to assist his friend by concealing the bottle behind the waistband of his shorts shortly after 3:00 a.m., when the venue had become entirely quiet. An observant janitor noticed something amiss. A group of young men, including Greg, Zach, Rostislav, Josh, and George, were consuming their bottle of absinthe. This situation did not escape attention, and became a significant aspect of the ongoing investigation. However, it was not solely the intoxicated young men who drew notice that evening. Jennifer, who had appeared relatively sober and composed at the start of the night, began to exhibit noticeable changes. She started to stagger and, at one point, leaned against the casino manager, Lloyd. Her actions elicited mixed interpretations from witnesses. Some believed she was merely trying to maintain her balance, while others perceived it as flirtation. The events that transpired afterward between the young couple remain unclear. Witnesses reported a conflict between them, possibly stemming from a discussion about the previous evening, which could have been light-hearted or serious. At one point, Jennifer struck George, though it was uncertain whether this was intended playfully or in anger. Following this incident, Jennifer exited the disco around 3:30 a.m., visibly intoxicated and unsteady, leaving George in the company of his new acquaintances. This moment marked a critical turning point in the night, with the testimonies of staff witnesses proving crucial in revealing the details of the incident. Jennifer, staggering down the hallway, drew attention as she departed. The janitor, who had previously observed the young men indulging in their absinthe, provided assistance to her, guiding her to the elevator and observing her as she turned right upon reaching her deck. However, an unusual inconsistency arose. Her stateroom was located on the left, yet she proceeded in the opposite direction. Jennifer was subsequently discovered asleep in the hallway, far from her designated room. 2 security guards and a female duty officer utilized a wheelchair to transport her back to her quarters. Upon their arrival, the clock indicated 4:52 a.m., but George was absent. The curtains on the balcony doors were tightly drawn and remained still despite the breeze, prompting questions about whether George had been able to access the balcony independently after his new acquaintances had left him in bed. Deputy Chief of Police Chit Hyman and his wife, who were resting in an adjacent cabin, observed the events as they unfolded. The couple had been asleep for a considerable time, but at 4:00 a.m., they were abruptly awakened by a disturbance on their floor. Initially, they heard loud noises emanating from stateroom number 9062, where the newlyweds were staying. Chit Hyman promptly contacted guest services to report the commotion and also knocked on the wall, calling out to his neighbors, which resulted in a brief silence. However, loud talking resumed for approximately 3 minutes, followed by a heated argument on the balcony. Chit and his wife then heard someone repeatedly say goodnight, as if attempting to usher people out of the cabin. Sounds of furniture being moved were followed by a loud thud, akin to an object falling. Concerned, Hyman decided to investigate and open the door, where he encountered 3 unidentified men. Several other passengers also reported hearing a loud noise that resembled a body striking the boat's canopy, accompanied by a woman's scream. However, none of the witnesses could provide definitive proof that a woman was present in the cabin at that time. According to accounts, 4 young men entered the cabin, but only 3 were seen leaving. This raised the question of whether one of them remained inside, possibly attempting to steal money from the newlyweds, who might have been inclined to do so after a successful night at the casino. The theory of a failed robbery attempt appears to be the most credible. Nevertheless, there are alibis for the 3 individuals, Greg, Zach, and Rostislav, who were reportedly in another stateroom shortly after Hyman observed the 3 unknown men. Key card records for George's stateroom indicate that the boys entered at 4:05 a.m., and their re-entry into the cabin was not documented. Consequently, multiple theories exist regarding the events surrounding George Smith. The robbery theory is one of the primary hypotheses. It seems that George and Jennifer consumed alcohol rather quickly that evening, yet witnesses noted that they appeared relatively sober when they departed the casino at 2:30 a.m. At 3:30 a.m., they were no longer capable of returning to their cabin independently, which raises concerns about potential exposure to illegal substances. This hypothesis is corroborated by testimonies from other casino patrons who reported that George and Jennifer openly discussed possessing substantial amounts of money, possibly acquired as wedding gifts or through casino winnings. Various witnesses provided differing estimates, but all suggested that their wealth was in the tens of thousands of dollars. It is also plausible that they fell victim to a robbery, as George was seen wearing an expensive Breitling watch, and Jennifer possessed a costly engagement ring, both of which indicated their affluence. It is conceivable that their quarters were searched for money. The bloodstains found on the sheet may have resulted from the kidnapper's attempt to remove George's valuable watch from his wrist. The second version of events pertains to the influence of alcohol and hallucinogens. Upon discovering the intoxication of the passengers and the footprints on the balcony, the captain speculated that an accidental incident may have occurred, such as George falling overboard during a struggle. Special attention is given to the possibility of hallucinations and their associated risks, stemming from the consumption of absinthe. Toxicology experts assert that the effects depend significantly on the concentration of the active ingredient, thujone. Currently, absinthe is legally sold in many European nations, where its concentration is strictly regulated by European Union standards, ensuring that the absinthe available for purchase contains significantly lower levels of thujone. The concentration of thuone is so minimal that it cannot induce hallucinations. However, illegally produced absinthe, which contains a significantly higher concentration, may be available on the black market and could theoretically lead to such effects. Nevertheless, this seems improbable in this instance, as the absinthe purchased by the Smith couple was obtained through official channels in Europe, and, according to experts, could not have produced such effects. To experience hallucinogenic effects from legitimate absinthe would necessitate an extraordinarily large quantity, one that would likely be intolerable for the human body, and could result in fatal alcohol poisoning. Therefore, the hypothesis regarding the influence of alcohol and hallucinogens, in this case, appears unlikely and lacks substantial evidence. The interrogation of individuals associated with the George Smith disappearance is a crucial aspect of the investigation. FBI agents conducted polygraph tests on several key figures, including Jennifer and casino manager Lloyd Botha, both of whom passed successfully. In contrast, Josh Askin did not pass the polygraph, which may suggest he harbored secrets related to George's disappearance. However, it could also be attributed to specific interrogation techniques employed to elicit further information. Additionally, a videotape featuring 3 individuals, including some Russians, joking about the incident emerged as significant evidence, which the FBI agents considered. One of the unidentified individuals on the tape remarked, "We gave him a lesson in paragliding without a parachute." The phrase may suggest an incident or joke involving George in 2009. During that year, all 4 individuals, Greg, Zach, Rostislav, and Josh Askin, were interviewed by FBI agents as witnesses in the investigation surrounding the enigmatic death of George Smith. Zach Rosenberg and Josh Askin declined to provide straightforward answers, invoking the Fifth Amendment of the United States Constitution, which protects individuals from self-incrimination. Their testimonies remained vague, indicating a reluctance or inability to fully recount the events that transpired. The investigation into George Smith's death was further complicated by the statements of Greg Rosenberg, who was among the young men socializing that evening. He asserted that they had ordered food to their cabin that day, which serves as a crucial alibi for the Russian individuals involved. However, this claim is contradicted by the ship's service logs, which do not corroborate any such orders, and it was noted that delivery services to their cabin had been restricted the day prior, with staff instructed not to provide any service that night. Greg was unable to definitively identify which passengers in the cabin had placed the orders. When questioned about the relationship between George and Jennifer, witnesses provided varying accounts based on their observations and memories. Greg noted that due to the significant alcohol consumption, it was challenging to assess the quality of the relationship between the newlyweds, emphasizing that the entire group was heavily intoxicated. Consequently, his testimony did not allow for any conclusive determinations regarding the nature of their relationship. Josh Askin provided information indicating that Greg left the cabin after placing a food order. However, Greg refuted this assertion, claiming he never departed. These conflicting statements complicated the investigation, necessitating further verification and fact-finding. Notably, Greg stated that he had no knowledge regarding the involvement of Jennifer or Lloyd Botha in George's disappearance, yet he firmly maintained that the incident was not accidental. The young man asserted that something extraordinary occurred that night, which would eventually be disclosed to the public. In December 2019, Greg Rosenberg was murdered, and his death remains unresolved. Authorities are exploring a potential connection between his murder and the death of George Smith. The enigmatic circumstances surrounding George Smith's disappearance have cast a long shadow over his family, and the situation has grown increasingly intricate. The behavior of the relatives following this tragedy has drawn the attention of both the public and law enforcement. The Smith family has persistently urged authorities to uncover the truth and seek justice. The case of George's disappearance was transferred from the FBI's Connecticut Regional Office to the New York office. Their determination, coupled with their ability to engage the public through media channels, has yielded minimal results. In an effort to unravel this dark mystery, the family has offered a $100,000 reward for information that could lead to the identification and prosecution of those responsible. Additionally, they have called for a boycott of the shipping company, which they believe is attempting to evade accountability. The incident was concealed to protect profits, leading to a rift between the parents and George's young wife Jennifer. Following the event, a comprehensive evaluation of her conduct commenced. Publicly, she appeared overly composed and measured, which raised suspicions due to her reluctance to disclose sufficient information. She asserted that she was adhering to the directives of FBI agents and was acting solely on their instructions. The Smith family, in their pursuit of justice and truth, ultimately lost trust in Jennifer when she accepted a $1 million settlement from the judgment company to resolve the lawsuit independently. This decision felt to them like a betrayal and an evasion of further scrutiny regarding the cruise organizers. The Smiths expressed disappointment over the lack of transparency in the Turkish authorities' investigation and believed that Jennifer was too hasty in accepting the settlement. They were convinced that she was concealing information and lacked genuine interest in uncovering the events of that night. Jennifer herself claimed to have little recollection of the hours after 2:30 a.m. and was unaware that the ship's staff had found her in the corridor and returned her to her cabin. The Turkish investigation did not meet the Smith family's expectations, and their faith in justice waned. Skeptical of the official conclusions, they resolved to seek justice independently and enlisted the expertise of forensic scientist Henry Lee. He conducted a series of examinations in the cabin and on the balcony, which were not part of the official inquiry. Key information has emerged regarding the circumstances surrounding the incident, which could potentially validate one of the two primary theories, murder or accident. According to Henry Lee, the height of the balcony renders a fall from it inconclusive. It is possible that George was pushed by a third party or, in a state of distress, climbed onto a chair and fell. However, this latter theory has raised numerous questions and doubts. The expert planned to conduct an experiment to simulate a fall from the balcony, but the owner of the liner denied this request. George's relatives assert that this decision was made to obstruct their efforts to uncover the truth. Henry Lee also carried out investigations in the cabin, on the balcony, and aboard the boat, Yet the findings from these inquiries have not been made public. Concurrently, the FBI initiated its own investigation, but many of its findings have also remained classified. The FBI's attention was particularly directed towards the 4 young men who spent the night with George, Josh Asin, and 3 Russians, Greg Zach Rosenberg and Rusov Kaufman. Their testimonies were largely inconsistent with those of other witnesses, adding to the confusion surrounding the case. The mystery of George Smith's disappearance persists, enveloped in uncertainty and speculation. Despite a protracted investigation and numerous theories, the Smith family and their loved ones continue to seek the truth, initially suspecting Jennifer, but later being persuaded of her innocence, which led to an increase in the payout. The lawsuit amount against the company was allocated among the family, who subsequently obtained the results of the investigation into the shipowner's company, which included witness statements and additional information. Jennifer cherished the memories of her first husband and committed herself to charitable organizations in his honor, striving to make a positive impact. Several years later, she entered into a new marriage. Despite extensive efforts and prolonged investigations by the FBI, the circumstances surrounding George's disappearance and the location of his body remained undiscovered. Ultimately, the case was closed, and the incident was classified as an accident. The FBI concluded that there was insufficient evidence to pursue the investigation further, as stated in the official report from the Federal Bureau. The enigma of George Smith's disappearance continues to be unresolved, leaving his family in search of clarity regarding the circumstances of his death. The inability to pay respects at George's grave is a source of deep anguish for his loved ones, who remain hopeful that they will eventually uncover the truth behind the mystery. Thank you for your attention.